In the fierce arena of light heavyweight boxing, Artur Beterbiev reigns as a living hurricane. A unified champion with a flawless 100% knockout record to date, unbeaten and unyielding. He steps into the ring with a record that speaks of destruction and an aura that commands attention. Beterbiev isn't just a boxer, he's a demolition specialist, a pressure fighter who strategically wears down opponents with relentless power. Today, I will dissect the layers of his brutal artistry, revealing the surprising nuances in his seemingly straightforward approach, where Artur's power meets precision and timing in the controlled chaos of the squared circle. Without delay, let's plunge into the heart of the storm and uncover the ruthless style that is Artur Beterbiev. First up, it's important to look at his background and how this has played a big part in shaping him into the systematic wrecking ball he has become. Artur Beterbiev is a man of Chechen descent, and his journey to becoming the boxing powerhouse began amidst the rugged landscapes of neighbouring Dagestan. A military presence shaped the landscape for which he grew up in. Despite their past and even current adversities, Dagestan and Chechnya emerged as a breeding ground for elite boxers, amateur wrestlers and MMA fighters, producing a disproportionate number per capita, with Artur being very much among them. Beterbiev's style, characterised by his brutality and clinical precision, found its roots in the streets of Dagestan, a place where discontent and street fighting were part of everyday life. He said the following: "I was a troubled kid. I always used to fight at school, in the streets. If there was a street tournament, I'd fight outside there. I was an angry kid, and it was a tough childhood. I had my principles. If it didn't work my way, I would start to fight." However, his life took a pivotal turn when his brothers intervened, who were like father figures to him, steering him towards boxing and wrestling gyms, initiating the honing of strength and skill set that would make him one of the most feared fighters globally today. This dual exposure to boxing and wrestling provided the foundation for his unique style, blending the artistry of striking but with the tenacity of grappling, which I'll touch on later. As a troubled kid who would often get involved in street fights, Beterbiev faced being kicked out both wrestling and boxing schools. Yet, his unwavering commitment to boxing saw him persist, returning to the gym even after being thrown out, showcasing the early signs of a determined spirit that defines him today. In the crucible of the Soviet discipline, Beterbiev's amateur career flourished. He became a product of a system that emphasized systematic training, from the most basic fundamentals to advanced tactics and strategies. The Soviet system would help lay the groundwork for his amateur success. His impressive record of 295 for 5 speaks to the depth of his experience and level of competition he faced, winning multiple amateur competitions, including the World Championship in 2009 representing Russia. Beterbiev's amateur achievements were nothing short of stellar. However, the elusive Olympic medal and childhood dream remained beyond his grasp, losing in both 2008 and eventually in the 2012 Olympics to Alexander Usyk, leaving a void in his amateur accolades. Yet, this perceived setback only fueled Beterbiev's hunger for greatness as he transitioned from the amateur ranks to the professional stage, moving to Canada to work with renowned Montreal-based trainer Mark Ramsey. But now, let's take a look at his style of boxing. Despite not fighting completely in the traditional Soviet style you see the likes of Dmitry Bivol and many other Soviet bloc stars fight like over the years, it resembles more closely to Golovkin's pressurizing Kazakh style. However, Beterbiev still carries the indelible marks of a structured approach. As a student of the school and an accomplished amateur boxer, Artur Beterbiev is no different. Even though he does not fight completely in that traditional Soviet style of boxing, he has all the fundamentals of the sweet science in place. Now, Artur, in my opinion, is much more on the side of being a calculated pressure fighter puncher. He mainly looks to try cut off the ring and trap you in the ropes and corner so he can unleash his powerful knockout punches. He's not someone who will aimlessly rush in. He'll take his time to figure out his opponent's movements and rhythm before he completely commits. Usually, he gets himself into position to time his own punches on his opponent when there is an opening. Because of this, his footwork is one of the first things I notice about him. He has an extremely well-balanced stance, evident signs of a fighter who has been moulded with precision from his amateur days. If If you just watch him closely move around the ring, you will notice that he's generally always perfectly balanced, with the weight evenly distributed between both feet, ready to come forward behind his punches, or defensively move linearly to get himself out of danger, or even take the sting out the punch, but I'll touch on this in more depth soon. His balanced stance and footwork also have several benefits when cutting off the ring, including the ability to not waste as much energy and control the centre of the ring. When he does get into range on his opponent, he can generate more power with each punch in a shorter arc to the target. It allows him to quickly go on the offense or block punches. You will very rarely, if ever, see Beterbiev out of alignment or out of balance, regardless of whether he is attacking or defending. Artur is also very capable of boxing from the outside, and is actually a very good counterpuncher at times, but I'll touch on this in more depth later in the video. The other aspect that I love about Artur's style, as I'm sure most of us do, is the incredible punching power. Now, if you've watched my How Champions Train video on Beterbiev, you will understand how his incredible power comes a lot from his technique and strength and conditioning training. But we must also credit the work of Montreal-based trainer Mark Ramsey, who has a known history of training some big punchers and world champions, including Jean Pascal, Lemieux and Alvarez. And you can't help but think the work they have put in with Artur in transitioning into the pro game has been a key part of his success to date by taking advantage of those solid fundamentals and giving him more of a focus to set up power punches.
To be honest, all the boxers that I have right now in the gym is boxers that I pick from amateur boxing, and when I scout and I look at them, this is one of the quality that I look like. I know it's very important for professional boxing.
Why do all the fighters you have punch so hard? You're one of the hardest punching trainers in the world.
To be honest, I like to train guys like that. It's like some coach that like to work with more technician and stuff like this. I can work with any kind of fighter, but I have a little preference for guys who can punch a little bit. You know, it's a game changer. It's a thing I think as a professional boxer it's very important.
But let's take a look at some of the more individual aspects within his style now. Now, before we get down to punch selection, it's important to address how Beterbiev cuts off the ring with his calculated pressure. Now, as mentioned before, Beterbiev is not going to wow fans in the media like other Soviet bloc fighters, such as the flashy angle footwork of Lomachenko, or using a more constant pendulum step of Dmitry Bivol when attacking and defending. However, he will impress his fellow fighters and coaches with a fundamental correct one for pressure fighting. As I've mentioned many times already, and can't stress how important this is for him, is that he is evenly balanced between both feet and very rarely brings them together. Instead, he looks to take small shuffling steps forward without compromising his stance or position as he aims to get into range or push his opponent back. His lead foot, for the most part, is always pointed at his opponent while keeping in his stance. From here, he can keep his balance and be more economical in his movements, with slight shuffles forward to continually apply pressure and then time the right moment to attack. When his opponent is stationary on the ropes or corner, or even when they attack themselves, he'll unleash those power punches. If Beterbiev does struggle to close the gap with more economical movement, the first thing he likes to do with his footwork is to lunge forward with a hard jab, similar to the gazelle jab or hook. But Beterbiev executes the lunges slightly differently. Instead of leaning forward and leading with all his weight in the front foot as most do, the light heavyweight champ carries his whole body under him to remain in a balanced position during and after the initial attack, usually by pushing off his back right foot instead. While another punch he likes to throw to get him into range, it's just that overhand right while plowing forward.
And that's exactly what happened. There's another right hand that comes in as he chases him down here at the end of the third round.
Or even just lead right hands to the body, which can be very disruptive due to its clubbing power. The Chechen boxer also fights out of an orthodox stance, but he does not switch needlessly into a southpaw. But Beterbiev sometimes likes to implement the forward shift technique, a move we have seen many Soviet fighters use in the past, including the likes of Pirog and Golovkin. This technique is used to quickly close the gap and cause panic for the opponent on the back foot, as this technique matches his pressure style perfectly. In terms of how he uses the technique, After throwing a right hand, he'll step forward with his right foot, continuing his advance into a southpaw stance, throwing with equal devastation with a follow-up left hand, while also helping him get on the inside. Doing this shift is also an easier way of maintaining a balanced stance at all times, instead of stopping the momentum and returning to an orthodox stance after throwing a hard looping right hand, which he does so often. Make sure to check out my shift technique video if you want to find out more about this area. Artur Beterbiyev's command over the sweet science extends beyond just his power punches. It's embodied by his finesse and strategic artistry of his jab. Let's delve into the nature of his jab, a weapon that serves as a backbone for his brilliant offensive brilliance. First and foremost, Beterbiyev possesses a traditional yet powerful jab, the cornerstone of his offensive arsenal. This fundamental punch isn't just a means of gauging distance or keeping opponents at bay, it's a statement. Beterbiyev's jab establishes control in the ring, creating the foundation upon which he builds his entire game plan off. Beyond the traditional jabs found in a boxer's toolkit, Artur uses it as a formidable weapon, the shotgun jab.
Out of his mouth. He took this fight on short notice. And then
this lead hand strike is more than just a punch, it's a controlled explosion, catching opponents off guard and amplifying the unpredictability of Beterbiyev's offensive onslaught, helping to keep opponents off rhythm and on the back foot. Unlike conventional jabs, Beterbiyev's shotgun jab is combined with a vertical spear jab at times, adding another element of surprise to its trajectory. Quite often looking to split through the opponent's high guard down the middle or to occupy it for further punches. The unconventional approach not only perplexes opponents at times, but also infuses a sense of controlled chaos in Artur's offensive strategy.
the punch and the accuracy to finish it. It's got him going again.
Beyond its role as a straightforward punch, Artur's jab also acts as a probing tool, a calculated instrument of strategic intelligence. He uses the jab to dissect his opponent's defenses, analysing reactions through feints and level changes, identifying vulnerabilities, often making a split-second decision based on the information gathered through his jab. By throwing it out himself, it can help draw out an opponent's jab for him to set up his right hand. Artur also is a master of distance management, and this is once again leveraged through his jab to dictate the space between him and his opponent. Whether he needs to close in for an explosive combination or maintain a safe distance, the precision and versatility of his jab play a pivotal role. It's not just a punch, it's a dynamic tool that shapes the ebb and flow of the fight. But overall, Beterbiyev's jab serves as a way to set up his devastating power punches or set up combinations by keeping opponents occupied and off balance with a varied but strong jab. He lulls them in with a false sense of security, only to unleash his signature power shots when they least expect it. The jab in Beterbiyev's hands becomes a masterful instrument of deception. Beterbiyev's trademark short punches are a distinctive feature of his style. Despite appearing as arm punches at times, these blows carry the force of haymakers. This unique ability is not merely a result of innate power, but no doubt stems from Beterbiyev's training for this style of punching. His unwavering balance and well-planted feet also contribute significantly to the clubbing power he generates in the short-range punches, making him exceptionally effective in infighting situations. The main way Artur sets up his power punches is by probing with lighter shots before throwing his big ones. Once the inevitable happens and he gets his opponents against the ropes through pressure, Beterbiyev likes to throw shots that manipulates the guard before mixing in with stronger punches. He does this all the time when opponents shell up. This tactic works perfectly for Artur because his short punching style does not need to wind up to deliver powerful blows. This way, the opponent has a hard time distinguishing if the punch coming is a probing one or a damaging one, forcing them to defend everything as if it's powerful, and thus sapping their energy much quicker. Add to the equation of the reputation of Beterbiyev as a mauler puncher, and you can imagine the pressure building up in the opponent's mind on what they should do next when they're on the back foot or the ropes. As discussed before, the probing jab is the main tool for this purpose, but Arthur also uses uppercuts and hooks. For example, he'll use uppercuts, will tighten the guard and open the sides for more powerful hooks. Or if the opponent is shelling up, will use quick hooks to the body before going up top. He will also very frequently use his jab and left hook feints to further confuse the defending fighter to only instead throw an overhand right hand. This is all tied up together by Beterbiev's eye and fight IQ, which I feel is very underrated by some, due to that puncher reputation he has. He observes the opponent's reaction to his probes, feints, level changes and regular strikes, and is constantly adjusting to find and create openings. This way of boxing is superior to throwing set combinations every time, regardless of the opponent's reaction. While I also love how he just throws those corkscrew hooks within his combinations around the opponent's high guard, helping to create even more indecision in his opponents. Many of his competitors know about this and refuse to get pinned down and try and move around Arthur, keeping them away with jabs while moving to his left to avoid the right hand. This approach has had mixed success depending on the opponent and the period of the fight, but the result inevitably is the opponents always exert drastically more energy. Beterbiev's ring IQ and solid footwork we already looked at before make this task of keeping him away monumental and tiresome, and this bullying style is the prime reason his opponents are always more tired than Beterbiev. Beterbiev probably wouldn't be as dangerous if his hands of stone weren't matched by his chin of the same material. As a heavy pressure fighter, Beterbiev inevitably is there to be hit at times, and he does not shy away from it to land even harder punches of his own. Fighters have managed to frequently find the target against him, and he's been hurt and down on the canvas multiple times in his career, so he is not unhurtable. This is light heavyweight boxing after all. Beterbiev does not have a defense that only depends on a granite chin though. His style is such that he relies much more on a strong high guard and footwork than anything else. Arthur takes most of the punches on his gloves, forearms with subtle movements. This way he can maintain his balance and mount an attack on his own. Rarely do we see him use that much head movement or elaborate footwork, it's very subtle. But still, if he notices some patterns, he will slip and duck a few punches and look to try reset himself back into the centre of the ring. Artur Beterbiev also possesses good counterpunching skills. While not a main tactic in his book, Arthur still poses a serious threat when defending and has caught people coming in with a counter overhand right hand, even when moving backward or sideways, showing he can also be a capable counterpuncher if the situation requires it. He can also be defensively responsible along the ropes or corners, keeping his hands high when moving laterally. In the championship portion of his career, Arthur even keeps his hands nice and tight when he smells the finish is near, so we can surely say he is not completely reckless and does defend well, but on occasion is willing to take one to get one. So we've talked about his footwork, jabs and probing shots, but when Beterbiev smells blood, his aggression is unrivaled, and he remains the only world champion as of when I posted this video with a 100% knockout ratio. He's a fighter that just doesn't let go until his opponent is unconscious or on the canvas, or the opponent's team have spared the opponent by waving off the fight. Arthur may be pressuring for the majority of the fight, but the real mauling begins once his opponent starts slowing down from the immediate danger from the damage they took earlier in the fight. In his early pro days, Beterbiev was a beast out the cage and went with all he got after hurting opponents. He's become more calculated and careful recently, but if anything, this has made him a much better fighter in my opinion. Just watch any of his major light heavyweight title fights. But the sharpest and in most cases the best instrument in Beterbiev's toolbox is his overhand right, which I've touched on earlier. He can throw it from different ranges, just seems to have a brutal clubbing power and the ability to knock out any person as he drives through from the right foot all the way through the target, and is responsible for most of Arthur's knockdowns to date.
But undoubtedly the fight that you just referenced was the most significant of the last century, as Beterbiev comes clocking in with a right hand. And then
in terms of his inside fighting, you cannot help but think his childhood background in wrestling in Dagestan played a big part in his infighting skill set in terms of the subtle control and confidence in these positions. While of course his insane strength when on the inside is also evident, and his overall strength training plays a big part here. In most cases, opponents tend to just shell up in the high guard, and this is where you will see Arthur throw his brutal body shots within his combinations. Quite often he will look to throw hooks to the body before using an uppercut to narrow the guard before then going around the guard up top. It's incredible. Sometimes you'll even put 4 to 5 punch combinations with a mix to body to head combos, each punch helping to create a gap in the opponent's guard. Overall, most opponents do not want Arthur in a close position and will quite often look to clinch to try and stop him from getting off any of his short powerful strikes and combos. While Beterbiev is very good at pivoting out to another angle if the opponent tries to tie him up or even cover up, while this also allows him to get off his punches from a different angle.
Beterbiev has to fight out. Oh, and he drops him.
While in these positions, you'll often see him frame off the lead hand or forearm on the opponent's head before he can land a significant blow on the inside and continue his brutality.
Final minute of round 6.
While he'll even occasionally use his head to push against the competitor's chest, applying more pressure, while it also allows Arthur to get off his hooks on the inside. And for me, he's actually a very underrated inside fighter. In the ruthless world of boxing, Beterbiev stands as a paragon of resilience, strategic brilliance, and devastating power. For me, his foundations are solid, moulded in his structured amateur days in the Soviet boxing system. However, since transitioning into the pros, he really refined his craft under the power-punching Canadian style, adding a level of sophistication to his relentless pressure, creating a unique blend of a calculated aggressor unleashing controlled chaos with devastating efficiency. Arthur's hard childhood in a region marred with violence amplifies his resilience that defines his character. Every punch thrown carries weight of that past, and every victory is a testament for overcoming that adversity. His seemingly simple yet deadly efficient style poses an incredible challenge for opponents. Despite evidence suggesting vulnerabilities and doubts linger about whether any challenger can crack the enigma of his style, Beterbiev's reign as a lone world champion with a perfect record and knockout ratio will soon enough face the confrontation when Father's time looms. In conclusion, Artur Beterbiev emerges not just as a knockout artist, but as a brilliant pressure fighter, a study in balance and a testament to his enduring human spirit to face adversity, and his legacy is still unfolding, but one that could be defined by facing his fellow countrymen. Hope you enjoyed this style breakdown on Artur Beterbiev. What's your favourite part about his style? If you want more like this, I recommend you check out my How Champions Train video on Artur, or why not check out my video on Dmitry Bivol. This has been Jamie from Boxing Life. Thank you so much for watching, and as always guys, I'll see you in the next one.